Millionaire family exposed for mocking woman at party, husband's incredible decision revealed. The Barrett family mansion loomed ahead like a castle of privilege, its grand facade shimmering under the moonlight. Emily Taylor swallowed hard, her heart racing as her fingers tightened around the fabric of her modest dress. How did a small-town teacher like her end up at an evening filled with diamonds and silk? This was not her world. Inside, the opulent foyer sparkled. Crystal chandeliers cast glittering reflections, but each glimmer only accentuated her insecurities. Her mind swirled with doubt. She believed fiercely in education's transformative power, yet here she was feeling like a mere specter amidst the crowd of elite. The elegant gowns swirled around her, effortlessly beautiful, while she felt like an imposter caught in a shining trap. Jake, her husband, stood close, his presence a lifeline, yet even his reassuring demeanor felt overshadowed by the towering figure surrounding them. As they mingled, the air turned thick with insincerity. Smirks danced across faces, followed by comments that dripped with thinly veiled condescension. "A teacher, how quaint," someone sneered, glancing at Emily as though she was lesser. Her heart sank. Did they not see her dedication? Her belief in opening doors for children from various backgrounds? She fought against the wave of humiliation, but it crested higher with every sharp glance and mocking laugh. Jake's face was a portrait of pride, but even he could feel the crushing pressure in the air. He was an architect, weaving dreams into blueprints, yet in the shadows of opulence, his accomplishments felt diminished. Was his ambition worth the burden of this extravagant world? As laughter rippled through the crowd, he felt a storm brewing, resentment against their disdain for the noble profession his wife embraced. Suddenly, the moment shifted. The laughter turned into louder jeers, remarks slicing deeper into the confidence Emily clung to. Her breath quickened. Fight or flight. Yet, just as despair threatened to swallow her, Jake took a bold step forward. With resolve, he faced the crowd, challenging their insidious jabs. "Do you even realize the weight of what you mock?" he asked, voice sharp yet calm. Drawing on memories of his college mentor, the man who inspired Emily to teach, he spoke of the vital role educators play. "Your lives may be glittering, but devoid of substance," Jake declared boldly, stripping back facades of wealth to reveal the emptiness beneath. Shock rippled through the room. Emily felt their gazes shift, a brief flicker of recognition igniting her spirit. She wanted to cheer for Jake, but panic rooted her to the spot. Instead of admiration radiating from the wealth around them, she sensed an undercurrent of resentment sparking. Before she could process her feelings, Jake's words ignited a tension that filled the air like static. Emily's heart raced, embarrassment wrapped tightly around her chest, but beneath it was admiration boiling. Could Jake really be changing the narrative? Yet, uncertainty gripped her. What if their bold stand only further incited the Barretts' wrath? Before she could find clarity, Emily's eyes caught her mentor across the room, his gaze steady yet quietly assessing. In that moment, irreversible stakes had been set. Would Jake's defiance forge a new path for them, or unleash a firestorm of consequence? She felt the weight of every decision heavy on her shoulders, coursing through her like a relentless tide, leaving her no clear way out. Time hung breathless, poised on the edge of something inevitable. The echoes of Jake's voice still reverberated in Emily's mind, a challenge that resonated not just in the mansion's opulent walls, but deep inside her core. As the murmurs settled into an uneasy silence, she found herself grappling with an unfamiliar fire igniting within her. The confrontation had fractured the veneer of sophistication among the Barretts, but it left Emily facing crises of her own. Bits of her past flooded through her thoughts, the sweltering classrooms, the faces of students whose hopes she believed in fiercely. She had always imagined making an impact outside the four walls of those rooms. But could this evening, this confrontation, be a catalyst for change? Her heart pounded with distrust of the crowd around her and of herself. Could she reclaim the narrative that seemed so precariously balanced on Jake's shoulders? Was it fair for him to echo her battle? Emily turned her focus towards the crowd. Their expressions shifted rapidly, uncertainty mingling with curiosity. Some appeared shocked, others were visibly uncomfortable, and a few looked entertained, as if encouraged by the unrest unfolding. Among them, she spotted the Barretts. Their facade of poise cracked slightly, revealing a tinge of vulnerability, but Emily also sensed their desire to retaliate. She felt an unsettling mix of dread and exhilaration, her words shaped by how they perceived her, how they saw the life she had chosen. Enough, she mentally commanded herself. This story was not just of wealth and pride. She had something to contribute, something worth sharing. She took a deep breath, finding strength from Jake's audacity. Perhaps it was time to step into her own light. Gathering her courage, she approached a small group gathered around a lavish spread of hors d'oeuvres. "Excuse me," she began, her voice steadying with each word. "It seems you shared a rather unique perspective on teachers." The way their eyes widened, drenched in surprise, felt empowering. "Do you realize the rippling effect a teacher can have? You mock the profession, but it's one that shapes the fabric of society." The crowd froze momentarily, absorbing her challenge. Education is the foundation, the catalyst that transforms lives. It starts with children like those who will one day stand beside you. Instead of mockery, we could use more support to uplift one another. As she spoke, the words poured out like a flood she had long held back. The depth and urgency surprised her. It was more profound than simply defensively reacting. Here was a chance for Emily to educate her audience about her world, a world rooted in determination and resilience. In that moment, something shifted. Recognition appeared on a few faces, perhaps igniting a spark of understanding. She saw a glimpse of the spark Jake had ignited earlier, his defiance breaking ground for her own assertions, yet, as empowerment coursed through her, the Barretts' laughter bubbled up again, an unfriendly reminder that they would not simply absorb her words. Mr. Barrett's scornful smirk returned, while his wife tightened her grip on a champagne flute, their discomfort only adding fuel to the fire in Emily's chest. "Who do you think you are, really?" One of them finally had the audacity to retort, their challenge more cutting than any previous remark. The question hung heavily in the air, laden with the weight of 1,000 expectations. Suddenly, doubts crept back in. She felt her foundation shift. Was she truly strong enough to stand firm against their wealth and privilege? Determination surged, battling the lethal cocktail of insecurity and anger swirling in her mind. In the face of confrontation, she could no longer retreat into her insecurities. This was not just a personal fight, it was a challenge to the system. The moment stretched, and Emily knew she stood on the brink of a critical juncture. Would she retreat, yielding to the shame and mockery? Or would she push forward, armed with newfound resolve, ready to take back her narrative? With her heart racing, she prepared to confront the barrier built not only by the Barretts but by her own self-doubt. The time had come to face the truth. Emily's breath caught as the words hung in the air like a sharp blade. She scanned the faces around her, seeking one shred of support amid the sea of indifference and disdain. It felt as though the opulent mansion had transformed into a coliseum, with spectators eager to see whether she would falter or thrive under scrutiny. The power dynamics shifted palpably. She was no longer just a whisper in shadows but a force challenging the status quo. In an instant, the laughter and derision morphed into an acoustic backdrop for her resolve. She straightened her back, the weight of self-doubt slowly lifting. She would not let the Barretts define her narrative. The rumination of her past successes and struggles flared within her, faint reminders of her resilience as a teacher. The focus sharpened, as if honing in on a target. A flicker of determination ignited in her chest. It was time for a reckoning. "I am a teacher," she stated firmly, her voice slicing through the sinister ambience. "I am proud of it, and every child I've nurtured embodies the future." Each word bore the weight of countless lessons learned not only from curriculum but from the lives of the young minds she shaped. "Your privilege has shielded you from learning anything meaningful," she continued, letting the tension simmer. "But I stand here as proof that true power comes not from wealth but from influence and courage." A ripple ran through the crowd, stirring whispers of surprise and intrigue. As she spoke, she realized there was more at stake than just her own dignity. It was about representing the underrepresented, revealing the deep-seated prejudices that so many overlooked. The contrast between her raw honesty and their gilded disdain became the narrative she would weave. "Do you think mocking my profession makes it less significant?" she challenged, locking eyes with Mr. Barrett, who looked momentarily taken aback. "You trivialize the honest work that shapes character, not just grades but the human experience itself. Teachers ignite passion and curiosity, they inspire success beyond the classroom." She felt a shift in the atmosphere, an unease fluttered through the crowd as they caught glimpses of truths they preferred to ignore. Mr. Barrett's confident smirk faltered, but the raw fearlessness blossoming within Emily emboldened her argument. She couldn't back down now, not when the adversary lay not just within the Barretts, but inside herself as well. The laughers now wore expressions mixed with begrudging respect and confusion. For the first time that evening, she saw something new: curiosity mingling with a desire to understand. Perhaps it was the uneasiness they felt confronting their own privilege. Emily's heart raced as she caught Jake's gaze from across the room. He nodded, affirming her stance, a silent acknowledgement that spread warmth through her. She grasped this moment and the potential it held. She had sparked something that felt alive and pulsing with possibility, but as her strength deepened, so did the confrontation. "Who do I think I am?" she repeated Mr. Barrett's scornful question, this time with conviction lacing her words. "I'm the voice of those who stand in the shadows, the embodiment of hope in classrooms that are too often dismissed. I am a force to be reckoned with, and I will not be shadowed by those too cowardly to truly see." The crowd reverberated with their ambivalence, but within her, a storm stirred. The stakes were high, and for the first time, she felt a sense of purpose that transcended personal achievement. This was no longer about defending her profession, it was about challenging an entire belief system. As the silence settled, she prepared to press on, fully aware that every inch gained would require relentless determination. The moment was ripe for revealing more, but she could sense the Barretts regrouping, their facade of elegance shaking under the weight of her truth. Was this the tipping point that she had long waited for, or was it just a precursor to deeper confrontation? Just how far would she have to go to reclaim her story and shatter the privileges that cloaked them? With every ounce of resolve, she stepped forward, ready to challenge whatever came next, driven by an urgency that compelled her to confront not just their ignorance but her own place in this unfolding drama. As Emily braced herself to dive even deeper into the fray, a new question tore at the fabric of her determination: what fragile threads of her identity would be left unspooled in pursuit of this truth? The air grew heavy with expectation as Emily inhaled deeply, her body steeling itself for the battle ahead. The crowd was no longer merely an audience, they had transformed into reluctant participants in a narrative far more complex than they anticipated. Her words still lingered, lingering like a challenge tossed into a murky pond whose ripples charted uncharted waters. "Do you understand what it means to teach?" she asked, her intonation cutting through the silence like a climactic musical note. Eyes narrowed and glinted with newfound engagement, the Barretts' facade slipping further as their expressions shifted from amusement to something bordering on fear. Within this high-stakes performance, Emily found an unexpected ally in her own vulnerability. It fueled her advocacy. As she spoke, a lingering childhood memory flickered into focus. Not long after her father's passing, she recalled standing in the school assembly, revealing her dreams to an audience filled with students who had known hardship. This was her essence, embodying hope amid despair. The memory sharpened her resolve further, reminding her of the worth she had fought to instill in every student. She took a step forward, feeling the solid floor beneath her feet. "Education shapes not merely careers, but souls," she continued, her voice rising above the murmurs. "Would you trade your wealth for the joy of unlocking a child's potential? Or is your security too tightly woven into the threads of privilege that keep you from understanding their struggles?" Each question struck like thunder, demanding introspection from her listeners, and she could sense the resistance, prickly and palpable. But she pressed on, emboldened by a force that swelled within her, a force cultivated over years in classrooms filled with potential and heartbreak. Then, amidst the crowd, she spotted an elderly woman, a throwback to another era. She looked weathered yet wise, her features softening against the bright golds and reds of the evening's attire. Emily's gaze locked with her and, in that instant, an unspoken understanding passed between them, a connection forged by understanding the weight of a world not often seen. This woman had likely weathered her own storms and, for the first time, Emily realized that her fight could be more expansive than just a confrontation with the Barretts. It could resonate beyond the moment. What you dismiss as inconsequential shapes lives, and if you continue blinding yourselves to that fact, you will remain beneath those gilded cages of your own making, Emily declared, her voice steady despite the surging emotions. It was no longer simply a defense of her profession, it was a call to consciousness that had the potential to evoke change. The crowd was shifting. They were responding to something deeper than circumstance, a confrontation with their ingrained perceptions. A murmur fluttered through the room. A few began to nod in tentative acknowledgement, while others presented a counter-reaction, their expressions torn between denial and curiosity. Either response was a battle won in itself, then, an unexpected interruption. Mr. Barrett finally recovered, his composure mustering an uneasy confidence. "Surely you cannot expect us to simply change our views because you've decided to muster some poetic rhetoric," he sneered, pushing back, but Emily detected a crack in his bravado, the tension burgeoned, and Emily's heartbeat surged with adrenaline. Was this the moment when she could expose the fragility of their beliefs? The elderly woman moved closer, her gaze steady. "Sometimes, it takes a single voice to unveil a reality cloaked in silence," she whispered, confirming Emily's instincts. And just like that, clarity came crashing in on Emily. This was not merely a confrontation over a profession, this was about the raw, intricate dance between power and vulnerability. It stretched beyond the walls of the mansion and into the heart of educational disparity. Would she dive deeper, unveiling even more truths at the risk of losing everything? Could she challenge the very constructs that held the Barretts above others? With her path laid out before her, Emily recognized this was her milieu, where her journey was leading toward startling revelations, both personal and professional. As the crowd held its collective breath, Emily felt the ground beneath her shift once more, a moment pregnant with possibility. The time had come to face the deeper question: what would rise from the ashes of their ignorance, and would she be prepared to bear the consequences of that truth? Each heartbeat echoed in Emily's ears as she stared into the void created by Mr. Barrett's retort. The confidence she'd spun from vulnerability began to flicker, but she neither allowed hesitation to anchor her feet nor let fear extinguish her flame. Her palms were clammy, yet she felt an electric resolve pulsating through her veins. The room was awash with tension, a palpable exchange of uncertainties mingling in the air. The elderly woman, brimming with silent strength, stood like an anchor in Emily's mind. The path ahead was murky, but clarity flickered with each conviction she articulated. To dismiss the power of education, Emily stated, her voice shaping each word like a sculptor molding clay, is to diminish the hearts of those who have yet to find their worth. A bead of sweat trickled down her spine, but she pressed on. Each phrase fortified her stance, entwining experiences she had witnessed in the classroom, the silent hunger for knowledge in the pupils who barely made it through the doors, who came not only for lessons, but for a safe haven of possibility. Barrett huffed, his face reddening as though he were the final gasp of a dying ember reluctant to surrender its flame. "Your tales are valiant, Miss Hart, but they fall flat in the real world. Enthusiasm won't pay bills." A murmur surged through the audience like wind through dry leaves. This statement stung, revealing an argument older than time itself. How often had hope been dismissed in favor of cold pragmatism? But Emily was determined not to retreat. In each challenge thrown her way, she found strength. "Life is not simply about balance sheets," she retorted, grounding her argument in personal anecdotes that amplified her message. "Every statistic reflects a life. Would you deny a child the chance to aspire simply because their circumstances are less than favorable?" Her voice resonated, pushing against the tight confines of the rich and privileged. In the midst of cascading voices and shifting dynamics, she sensed the crowd slowly swaying, an invisible current pulling their hearts and minds into her narrative. Eyes that initially brimmed with skepticism now glimmered with reluctant curiosity. Emily's passion spilled over like the first waves lapping at the shore, rising, rising toward an inevitable tide of change. Suddenly the elderly woman coughed gently, redirecting attention toward herself. "The irony," she began, her voice captivating the room's attention, "is that those with the means often lack the insight born from struggle. Until you step into their shoes, you will never truly understand." Emily watched the crowd digest this revelation, noting how it echoed within Mr. Barrett himself. The slightest flicker of uncertainty crept into his gaze. It was a crack she had to exploit, a chance to invoke reflection within a man fortified by his position. "And if you continue to view education solely through the lens of wealth," she continued, "you consign generations to remain shackled in mediocrity. Are you truly comfortable with that legacy?" Mr. Barrett's defenses still loomed, but they appeared threadbare now, like fabric fraying at the seams. Emily took a decisive step closer, refusing to yield. "Should you choose to truly engage, standing in solidarity with the voice of future generations, you would find that educating a child adds purpose not only to their life but to yours as well." The murmurs resonated like dissonant chords now beginning to harmonize. Every moment built upon itself, an echo chamber of awakening awareness, and Emily felt emboldened to plunge deeper, to risk exposing her own raw truths entangled with her passion for education. Yet, within this escalating charge, a profound question loomed: was she prepared to dismantle the very perceptions that shaped her existence? As Emily's thoughts swirled, a revelation blossomed. What if this moment extended beyond confronting the Barretts? What if it revealed deeper aspects of herself, untapped strengths that demanded to be harnessed? The air thickened with anticipation, and just as she opened her mouth to reveal her next thought, the crowd shifted in an unexpected direction. One figure stepped forward, drawing all eyes. The elderly woman raised her voice, declaring, "Let us not waste this opportunity." The world shifted, and Emily felt it. She was on the brink of something monumental. The question now was whether she could harness this momentum to lead not just a conversation but a movement. With bated breath and a sense of thrill surging through her spirit, she braced herself for the challenge ahead, an unveiling, not just of power and privilege, but of the indomitable human spirit waiting to arise. What lay ahead didn't frighten her, it excited her. The time had come to pull the threads revealing truths beyond their gilded worlds, the unknown potential within herself and her cause. Would she become a beacon for those yet unheard, or would shadows swallow the dawning light? The crowd's restless murmur swelled, each note a heartbeat echoing the uncharted territory Emily was about to navigate. The elderly woman's call had planted a seed of possibility, sending ripples through the gathered audience, a mix of interest and trepidation. Emily sensed that the very atmosphere, thick with palpable anxiety, was shifting. It was now a platform for transformation. Determination surged through her, igniting a scattering of ambitions that had long lurked beneath layers of doubt. The challenge presented was more than a confrontation with Mr. Barrett, it felt deeply personal. Could she coax forth the silent strength that had been dormant within her? Could she rise beyond the fearful girl who had once doubted her ability to effect change? "Let us come together," Emily implored, her voice growing steadily bolder, drowning out any remnants of uncertainty. "This isn't merely about statistics and bills. It's about nurturing the spirit of possibility within each heart that struggles to be seen." Her words flowed, not as an attack, but as an invitation to reconsider what the world deemed valuable. For the first time, she locked eyes with Mr. Barrett, scrutinizing the facade beneath which uncertainty lingered. Behind the wealth and status, was there a man eager to reclaim lost empathy? Something flickered in his glare, a clash of defensiveness and the vulnerability she had dared to shine light upon. It was an opening, and Emily felt like a harbinger of change plucking at the strings of his conscience. "We have the power to reshape narratives," she continued, her conviction rising like a phoenix from its ashes. "By educating, we empower not just individuals but entire communities. Think of the transformative wake of compassion we can generate. Not just through funding, but through hearts connecting." The crowd's murmuring shifted, some individuals leaning closer, captivated by her words as if she were unraveling a tapestry woven with their own hidden stories. Emily carefully wove her personal experiences of growth, failure, and discoveries that had marked her own path. She spoke of students who, against daunting odds, blossomed into changemakers. Each story underscored the possibilities lurking beyond the gravestones of apathy and fear, yet fear crept into her thoughts. Would they embrace the change she sought to inspire? The tension between expectations and reality loomed large. Did she possess enough courage to reveal her own insecurities? Doubts gnawed at her resolve. But uncertainty was no longer a prison, it was a canvas, ready to be painted with bold strokes of bravery. With this acknowledgement, she decided to lower the walls she had conscientiously built around herself, exposing the raw truths of her own fears and motivations. I, too, struggled. I grappled with the burden of inadequacy. Yet in the same breath, I found wisdom in those moments of doubt. Transformation doesn't emerge from perfection, it sprouts from every faltering step we take. Eyes widened, some filled with recognition. Quiet murmurs of understanding floated through the audience, testament to their shared struggles against fear. Whether from privilege or poverty, they were bound by a desire for something greater. Yet, even in this emergence of empathy, a question loomed large: was she truly ready to embark on this journey, to intertwine her fate with those who had been silenced for so long? Emily felt a weight on her shoulders, heavier than any she had encountered before. The elderly woman observed quietly, her gaze steady and unwavering, a lighthouse amidst the swelling tides of emotion. "This is where the change begins," she said softly, yet her words carried the weight of conviction. "Each of us carries a unique story, our strength lies in sharing it." Emily rallied, noticing the growing acceptance in her listeners. As she stood before them, the previous flickers of hesitation dissipated, replaced by an ignited passion to probe deeper into the contexts that shaped their identities. The implications of this moment washed over her. To embrace this mission meant not only lighting the way for those who had been marginalized but also embracing her own truths, a revelation that demanded interpersonal exploration. "Let us shape this narrative together," she declared, a flame of hope igniting within her. "We have a chance to pivot from indifference to involvement, to join in unison against the tides that threaten to drown our spirits." And just as momentum gathered around her words, a loud clap resonated from the back of the room. It was Mr. Barrett, an unmistakable storm brewing in his expression. His response would decide the course they all steered toward: move forward into a shared endeavor, or retreat back to the shadows where defeat lingered. Emily's heart raced, poised at the precipice of her greatest moment yet. Could she turn his clap into a chorus of action? Would they unite? The air pulsed with anticipation, a fragile balance between breakthrough and retreat resting on the edge of a pin. Would his next words sink or soar? The room shifted, a pulse of air catching in everyone's throat as Mr. Barrett's attention honed in on Emily. He rose slowly, his stature towering over her and the audience alike. Her heart thumped, a steady, insistent drum echoing her trepidation. Did he recognize her plea for empathy? Or was this simply an opportunity for him to reassert his dominance? "Miss," he began, each word weighed with curiosity yet laced with disdain, "you speak of stories and transformation as if they are simple matters. How do you propose to enact this change? Are your ideals grounded in reality, or are they mere fantasies?" His skepticism hit like a cold splash of water, but instead of retreating, a fiery resolve coursed through her veins. In that moment, she grasped how crucial this exchange was, not just for the audience observing her, but for herself. This was her proving ground. To change the narrative, Emily replied firmly, "we must first confront our own misconceptions. Transformation begins with acknowledgement, including the uncomfortable truths about privilege and power." The murmurs in the crowd intensified, some voices picking up her thread of defiance. The mixture of shame and hope igniting around her was palpable, but she needed to harness it. "What you see as an impractical ideal, Mr. Barrett," she pressed on, "is rooted in reality. I have witnessed it firsthand. Change isn't conjured from thin air. It's crafted by sharing our stories, breaking down walls, and asking the difficult questions." His brows furrowed, and in that brief hesitation, Emily sensed an opportunity to further unravel the facade he held. The tension turned electric. "You want to know how I plan to light this spark?" She paused, allowing the thrill of a challenge to hang in the air. I'm willing to stake my story, my voice against the tides of indifference. As she spoke, memories surged: the late nights spent cultivating resilience, the faces of students who challenged her perceptions, and how their trials propelled her forward. It was time to unearth the deepest truth of her journey, the moment she learned that vulnerability could disarm the strongest opponents. I used to hide from my fears, afraid of being dismissed, of failing. But I discovered that sharing my vulnerabilities is what connected me to others. It empowered me. Mr. Barrett's expression wavered, uncertainty flashing across his features. In his world built on metrics, wealth, and power, could he reconcile the strength found in emotional honesty? I stand here as a testament that we all have the capacity to change. If I can rise from my doubts and strive for greatness despite them, so can others. She could feel the energy shift, waves of solidarity radiating from the crowd, a collective acknowledgement of their shared humanity, yet as the applause cascaded like raindrops, the echo of a new fear gripped Emily. What if this shift in momentum was momentary? Would their connections dissolve as easily as they had forged? She examined Mr. Barrett, attempting to decipher whether this was genuine engagement or mere theatrics. His silence lingered, a heavy backdrop to the growing enthusiasm around her. A flicker of defiance crossed her mind. If he faltered, she would not allow the moment to slip through her fingers. Change requires action, she declared. Words mean nothing without backing them up. I challenge you, Mr. Barrett, to commit not just to dialogue but to tangible outcomes. His jaw tightened, yet his eyes reflected the embers of contemplation. Perhaps she had struck a chord. The audience leaned forward, breath held in a mix of anticipation and dread, aware that the outcome of this moment could reverberate beyond the walls of the room they occupied. Emily's pulse quickened. She was teetering at the brink of something monumental, something that could redefine not just her path, but the very framework of how stories could reshape lives. Finally, she had found her voice. Now she had to ensure it was heard loud and clear. But as Mr. Barrett opened his mouth to speak, the tension in the room morphed to a quiet panic. For better or worse, fate was about to deliver on whatever bargain had been struck. Would it unravel beneath the weight of his impending response, or would it soar to new heights? As Mr. Barrett's mouth opened, the weight of silence hung thick, threatening to engulf the moment entirely. Emily felt the rush of adrenaline invade her thoughts. Her previous defiance surged onward, heart racing. Would he dismiss her words entirely, or could they become a mere pebble that disrupted the well-crafted facade of indifference he wore like armor? Emily, is it? He finally said, his tone shifted, sterile perhaps, yet tinged with a hint of contemplation that gave her pause. While I can appreciate your passion, you must understand that real change doesn't just happen through spoken words or impassioned pleas. He paused, allowing the audience to catch their breath, his admirers going silent, waiting. Real change requires strategy and substantial resources, he continued, nodding toward the lavish surroundings, the ornate chandeliers, and the polished marble floors beneath their feet. It's a long game, not simply an emotional outpouring. A deep breath steadied Emily. To confront him directly felt like a risk, yet one she was willing to take. What if I told you those resources are less valuable than the stories we hold? While money can facilitate change, it is our shared experiences that fuel true transformation. A strategy built merely on power will falter if the humans behind it remain unheard. As if propelled by unseen forces, she stepped closer, her voice rising. Have you ever considered that your greatest asset might be to listen? To engage with those whose narratives you deem irrelevant? This is not about rallying wealth, it's about harnessing humanity. The whisper of the audience shifted from anticipation to intrigue. Did they perceive a shift in the power dynamic? Emily could sense it, a crack in Mr. Barrett's facade. He inhaled sharply, and for the first time, doubt crept across his features. The polished veneer of authority seemed less impenetrable. Emily could see her words puncturing the defensive layers he had wrapped around himself. However, the flush of triumph was short-lived as the specter of her earlier fear flickered back into her mind. What if this moment culminated in a Pyrrhic victory? If Mr. Barrett toppled today, what legacy would remain for her? Would the ripple effect of this conversation become a tsunami of change, or would it drown in the pool of his privilege? Do you understand the difference between mere acknowledgement and accountable action? She challenged, her voice increasingly sure, emboldened by the vigilant response of those listening. In that moment, Emily realized that her quest was not just about gaining influence in this interplay of power but about embracing her own insecurities, challenging herself even when the odds seemed desperately stacked. She no longer stood beneath Mr. Barrett's shadow, she was carving out a space for herself in the light. Barrett's face, however, remained rigid, a fortress against the rising tide of sentiment. It stirred emotions within her, feelings of frustration intertwined with determined clarity. Would her efforts matter, or was she simply dreaming in the face of reality? The growing audience's reaction swirled in her consciousness, the emotions danced in a tango of fear and hope. Mr. Barrett, she pressed again, whether you perceive it or not, your perception shapes reality. The legacy you leave is determined today. Will you be known as the man who stifled voices, or will you rise to elevate the stories that need to be heard? The room crackled with uncertainty as a reflective hush settled over the crowd. Emily held her ground, grappling with the weight of her challenge. The enormity of this moment was palpable. Mr. Barrett's lips pursed, she could see the muscles in his jaw contract, an internal war visibly raging within him. For Emily, this was a watershed, not only for him but also for herself. Had she unveiled a glimpse of his humanity, or had she merely reignited the fires of resistance? As the seconds stretched on, fragile and taut, the audience held their breath. Emily stood on a precipice, the next words he might utter could shatter or reshape everything. Would this moment establish a bridge from which genuine dialogue could be born? Yet deep within her, unease lingered. Even if she changed him, would it be enough? The battle between hope and doubt raged within her as she awaited an answer. What if you heard my proposal before deciding on your next step? He finally spoke, tone inscrutable. Curiosity flickered in her mind, as well as the gnawing question of what lay beneath that invitation. The air thickened as Emily processed Mr. Barrett's response. His invitation shimmered with potential yet lurked with trepidation. Was this an opportunity to elevate the conversation, or a mere tactic to deflect her challenge? She fought to keep her composure, a battle of wills unfurling before her. Proposal? She echoed, determined to navigate the terrain he had laid out. What could you possibly offer that would address the voices you overlook? Her brow furrowed as she tried to decipher the subtext of his invitation. Could it be a ploy to regain control, or was it genuine? Emily's mind raced, surveying the myriad paths this dialogue could take. Should she cling to her initial instinct to confront him, or perhaps channel the open invitation into a broader discussion? She could feel the weight of the audience's gaze pressing down on her, their anticipation intertwining with her own rising anxiety. Let us hear this proposal, she pressed, allowing confidence to seep into her voice. There was no way to go backward now, this was a chance to establish a new dynamic, one in which her influence shifted from mere participant to an architect of authentic dialogues. Mr. Barrett shifted, momentarily losing that impervious air. Imagine a program, he started, slowing himself down, one that empowers individuals to share their stories, those formerly considered irrelevant. What if we create a platform for those voices? Emily felt a tug of intrigue mixed with skepticism. A platform alone isn't enough. What action will stem from those stories? Will they be blended into a marketing strategy to sell some idealistic fantasy of partnership? The firmness in her voice surprised her, it resonated as if she had struck a core truth. The foundation of his intent remained dubious, but her challenge blurred the lines of skepticism and opportunity. I appreciate your passion, he responded carefully, a slight smirk hovering at the edges of his mouth. But, Emily, think of the impact real stories from real people. How can that not be transformative? The threads of her purpose tugged tightly at her consciousness. She had stepped into this arena fueled by her past, her own battles with being unheard. It matters how you listen, Mr. Barrett. It's not enough to hear stories, they must be integrated into changing the core you represent. What stands to gain from this? It should not become another tokenistic gesture. His expression darkened slightly, revealing a flash of irritation. You're making this too complicated. Complicated? Or necessary? Her heart raced, a surge of nerve driving her forward. His defensiveness only emboldened her resolve, awakening a dormant fire that demanded clarity. Every decision you make from here shapes not just your legacy, but your effectiveness as a leader. Are you willing to risk that by genuinely empowering others, or just co-opting their struggles into your narrative? Their eyes locked, a silent challenge bridging the chasm between them. Emily's ability to articulate her convictions, to thrust his choices back into his sphere of influence, felt invigorating. The stakes had risen, yet she was grounded in her purpose that he exhaled sharply, frustration mingling with a grudging respect. I see your point. But understand, transforming a narrative within a structure like mine is cumbersome, she interrupted, but perhaps necessary. Let us not make this about maintaining a power structure that sustains the status quo. Let us dive deeper than surface acknowledgement. A spark ignited deep within her, a realization that she possessed the ability to shape conversations and influence proactive steps. This was her realm, a newfound authority emanating from her willingness to challenge Damar. Barrett's defenses appeared to falter. You drive a hard bargain, Emily, he mused, the steel in his tone softening. I drive for change, she emphasized, her voice firm yet reflective. This isn't a game of bargaining. It's about our moral responsibility to advocate for the unheard. The air held a charged tension, as uncertainty danced between them. What emerged from this tumultuous exchange could shatter Mr. Barrett's facade, and perhaps elevate Emily beyond her own insecurities. As she stood solidly in her convictions, Emily positioned herself on the brink of discovery. Would he recognize her challenge as the catalyst for his transformation, or would he reinforce his entrenched beliefs? The next words he spoke could shape not just the moment but the path ahead for them both. We could develop a proposal together, he suggested, eyes narrowing in contemplation. Emily held her breath. Was this a genuine invitation to partner, or merely a strategic maneuver? The challenge had morphed into a dance of potential futures, and she had to decide whether to step into Mr. Barrett's world or challenge him to step into hers. Emily stood there, her heart racing, caught in the moment that would redefine her existence. In the past, she had unconsciously placed limits upon her ambitions, believing she had little power against entrenched privilege. Tonight had shifted that paradigm. No longer was she merely a victim of circumstance, she was a protagonist in her own narrative. The essence of transformation coursed through her veins like wildfire, she felt a fusion of anxiety and empowerment, a duality that propelled her forward. Develop a proposal together, she echoed. The words hung in the air, charged with a magnitude that neither of them could ignore. A fusion of nostalgia and possibility surged within her. This wasn't about validating their experiences, it was about forging a new path, one that redefined the very essence of power and influence. It suddenly struck her this was her moment. She could influence a cerebral shift, employing her voice as an instrument for connection, for hope. The flickering lights of the extravagant mansion, once symbols of exclusion, now felt distant. She was resolute. If we're going to embark on this proposal, it must prioritize authenticity. It needs to amplify voices that have been historically marginalized. Her voice became a clarion call, firm with intention. She wasn't merely negotiating, she was insisting upon integrity. Damar. Barrett seemed to wrestle with his thoughts, an internal struggle playing across his features as he contemplated the framing of this proposal. Was it just about marketing, or could it indeed become a genuine movement? The stillness of the room mirrored the weight of this moment. The people around them, once spectators, now held shared breaths. They were not just witnessing a transformation, they were on the precipice of redefining norms. I'm listening, he finally said, his tone unexpectedly softened. What does that look like to you? The question sent a jolt of realization through Emily. This was not just about her. This was about a collaborative vision that could include her students, the voices of the unseen, the dreams that transformed into reality when nurtured. It starts with listening sessions, not just for show, but as valuation of dialogue. We need to engage community stakeholders and students not as subjects, but as partners, she asserted passionately. I'll admit, he mused, that's a more formidable approach than I initially considered. Did I just earn a sliver of respect? She felt emboldened, driven by the vision forming in her mind. Access is vital. Each narrative shared isn't just a statistic, it's a life infused with experiences. We must design frameworks that genuinely integrate these perspectives into decision-making, ensuring that what is crafted resonates with truth. Mr. Barrett nodded slowly, and for the first time, Emily sensed that their interaction transcended ego. The sense of urgency she once harbored now morphed into commitment. This is not a trifling endeavor, she continued, but rather a complex process that can create real, measurable change. It's about recognizing that our destinies are intertwined, molded not just through education, but through empathy. And measurable change, Mr. Barrett echoed, fascination mingled with challenge. What will success look like? An exhilarating hope rushed over her. Success will be the tangible inclusion of narratives, the emergence of students from backgrounds formerly marginalized into various roles of influence. It means seeing real shifts in policy that allow all voices a seat at the table. The room vibrated with a newfound energy. Instead of isolation, there was a collective bond forming through purpose and understanding. The elderly woman, previously silent, stepped forward. Would you agree to include a diversity of voices in crafting this process? It cannot be about power hoarding, but nourishing those around us. Emily locked eyes with Mr. Barrett, and she saw recognition there, perhaps even enlightenment flickering in the corners of his gaze. Absolutely, he replied, voice steadied. This is a collaborative endeavor, the derivatives of which will indubitably enrich our communities. As verbal stones were laid, foundations were established that went beyond the superficial. Here was a resolution born of conflict, a synthesis of a mission driven by education, equity, and respect. Emily had transformed from an intimidated outsider into a formidable architect of change. People began to rise as she wrapped her thoughts, connections tethered in shared responsibility illuminated the room. In this pivotal moment, Emily no longer grappled with the heaviness of doubt. The gnawing panic had been supplanted by an undeniable clarity. It was now clear, she deserved her space in this conversation not merely as an advocate for education, but as a vessel for progress. As the remaining guests began to murmur with excitement and disbelief that something powerful might truly emerge from this clash of worlds, she took a deep breath of satisfaction. The barriers she had perceived were shifting, as tides of collaboration began to envelop the moment as tides do the shore forcefully, willingly. For the first time, she felt the weight of her calling align with a shared mission. And as she stepped away from the shadows of self-doubt, she recognized her influence in this dynamic. Emily Taylor, no longer just a teacher, she was a force forging a new narrative, one story at a time. Now was not just the time to celebrate, it was the dawn of a transformative journey, and she had embraced the call of action, the courage to collaborate amidst privilege and status. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for personal overcoming stories. Don't wait even one more second to share.